Welcome to the IQ West of England branch webinar. Today we're going to be taking a look at mental health awareness with Julie Edwards of MP Skills. If you have any questions on today's session, you can send these through via the questions panel to the right of your screen. Although we won't have to take a live Q&A session today, we'll make sure that we come back to you directly to address anything that you've sent through on this. And I'll now pass you over to Julie.
Thanks very much, Dave. Just want to thank the IQ Academy for giving us this opportunity to speak to you all today. Thanks very much for that. I'm just going to run through a little bit about myself first of all. My name's Julianne Edwards. Some of you may know me from the industry. I'm a MP Skills trainer. I'm an industry trainer for MP Skills. I've been working in the industry for 20 plus years now. I've worked in various departments, but my passion is learning and development. I'm quite passionate about mental health first aid. I started my training in June last year, June 2019, and I've trained approximately 200 people, whether that be an awareness course or a mental health first aiders as well. Okay, so during the presentation, this is what we're going to go through. It's going to be what is mental health. Then we're going to look at some facts about mental health conditions. We're just going to touch on that slightly. Risk factors of developing a mental health condition, some protective factors, so how you can actually look after your own mental health, and mental health in the workplace. And we're also going to talk a little bit about remote working as well, because a lot of us are working from home at the moment. And self-care, of course, self-care is very important. We need to look after each other and ourselves. Okay, so what is mental health? It's how we feel and think and behave in our everyday lives, how we cope with ups and downs of everyday life, how we see ourselves and our future, how we deal with negative things that happen in our lives, our self-esteem and obviously our confidence as well, how stress affects us all. We all have mental health. We need to embrace that. We all have mental health. There's no health without mental health. We've all had a different journey through our lives. A big thing for me would be non-judgment. You meet people in your lives and we all pass judgment on them. We shouldn't be doing this. We meet people in our everyday work and life and we've known them for 5% of their lives. We need to appreciate that we know that we don't know that 95% of those people. So we shouldn't pass judgment based on our own beliefs. So some facts about mental health. So 1 in 4 people experience mental health issues each year. At any given time, 1 in 6 working age adults have symptoms associated with a mental ill health. 676 million people are affected by mental health issues worldwide. That isn't just the person who's suffering in regards to illness. We're actually talking about a wider audience. So this could be somebody suffering from a mental health problem, but it also could be that support network like friends and family who do suffer with their mental health because they're trying to help someone through an illness. Mental illness is the largest single source of burden of disease in the UK. And it's quite shocking that we haven't addressed this sooner in our lives. Mental illness are more common and they're more long-lasting and impactful than any other health condition, any physical health condition. Just a few facts about the sector in regards to construction. 57% of people in the construction industry have experienced some form of mental health issues. 400,000 working days are lost in the industry each year due to mental ill health. 63% hid the real reason for their absence. How many of us as line managers have spoken to people in the past that have been on the phone and they're off? The problem with absenteeism, so they're off a long time. This could be contributing to it could be their mental health that they're suffering with. They're not giving you the real reason why they're off work. 30% have taken time off due to mental health issues. And 1 in 4 construction workers have considered suicide. I just want to talk a little bit about suicide and the terminology that we use at the moment. The old terminology that we used to use in regards to describing suicide was they've actually gone through suicide and taken their own life. They've committed suicide. This is all terminology that we don't longer use in regards to mental health and describing suicide. We actually use attempted suicide and completed suicide. That's just something to bear in mind. So what can we do to offer those in our workplace, as line managers, as colleagues, what can we offer? So if you notice someone is not their usual self, take some time to talk to them. This may take a few more minutes. It might only be 30 seconds. We're all guilty of actually speaking to the person and saying, hi, how are you? But we walk past them when we don't listen to the answer. Approach them in a safe place to allow them to talk confidentially as well. That's very important. Ask how they are and if you can help. If you can't help them and you're uncomfortable with the situation, it might have to be taken away from you. If you have mental health first aiders in your organisation, that might be your first port of call. Do not use your own frame of reference to pass judgment. Like I mentioned before, you might have only known this person for 5% of their entire life. You have no idea what their journey's been like to get to where they are today. Do not use words such as pull yourself together or cheer up. Using guilty language like that will not promote a good conversation with that person. Just some legislation to go over. Obviously, this covers all of our mental health. So you've got the Health and Safety Work Act 1974, the Human Rights Act 1988, and then you've got others there. So the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations, the Quality Act 2010, and then the Mental Health Discrimination Act 2013 came in. There was legislation in everyday work and environment that directors, people who had mental health problems, could not become company directors. That's been changed now in 2013. If you want some additional information, if we have any line managers on here or anybody who wants any other additional information, I have a PDF that you can download for free from Mental Health First Aid England, Line Managers Resource, and there's a wealth of information in for yourselves. If you want me to share that, I certainly can do. Remote working, so this is very important at the moment, obviously, because a lot of us are working from home. Some of us are furloughed as well. In regards to working at home, if it's something you're not used to be in that social environment, it's very important that you stick to your normal work routine. So try and get up at the same time every day, still get washed, get dressed. It's very important that you do that. Separate your workspace from your home space. You are working at home all the time, all day. So you need to make sure you can tidy everything away as much as possible and make sure you have that separation between work and home. Take regular breaks as well. That's very important. You are at home, you're in a comfortable environment, or most of us are in a comfortable environment. You have to make sure you have those regular breaks. So take some time for you as well. It's difficult when you are at home. Keep in touch with your colleagues. Very important. You need to keep in touch with all those people you normally work with, whether that's having virtual coffee afternoons or just having a 10-minute chat. Best not to communicate through email. If you can do it through video call, that would be fantastic. If you're feeling isolated though, you need to talk to friends and family or your colleagues. Please don't feel like you can't talk to anyone. You must make sure that you're reaching out to people if you are struggling. This is a useful number for anyone who does think they are struggling or think somebody is struggling. Samaritans, very useful resource. They're a fantastic organisation, and that's the telephone number you need if you do need to contact them, 116123. Another note though, if you're a line manager, how do you know you're rewarding your staff? If they're doing a very good job at home, it's hard because you're not in the same environment. You need to make sure you're still having those calls and tell them they're doing a good job. And how do you know your employees are okay? Are you having those regular conversations? Just a basic chat of how the day gone. Doesn't necessarily have to be about work. It can be about what's going on in their lives in general as well. So I just want to talk a little bit about mental health conditions. The first one I'd like to discuss is mood disorders. This is one that could be depression. When I'm talking about depression, I'm actually talking about clinical depression, not those everyday blues. So clinical depression can last for a long period of time and it doesn't go away for that person. Okay. Bipolar disorder. I know a lot of people have heard of that, but I'll just describe a little bit about that. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder where you can have mania, so you've got a very high mood where you're very productive, and then you can have very low moods as well. Somebody with bipolar can also have psychotic episodes, so they can have thinking and perception disorder. So the next one I'd like to talk about is anxiety disorders. So we have obsessive compulsive disorder, and I'm sure most of us have heard of that, which is called OCD. We do have to be careful when talking to people in our lives, in our working environment, because I've had a lot of people say, oh, you're OCD or whatever, but someone who's suffering from that illness, if you call someone OCD, it's obviously going to have an effect on their health. So make sure you don't use "are you OCD" because it is a real disorder that people do live through on a regular basis. Post-traumatic stress disorder, probably the most common one people know about, which is PTSD. This normally happens after some sort of traumatic event. It's, as you know, it's very common in the armed forces, but it can actually be for people who've gone through what they see as a traumatic life event. That could be anything for that person. It depends on their frame of reference of how they cope with events in their lives. It could also be people who've actually been in the Manchester bombings or the London attacks. Anything like that obviously can trigger PTSD. General anxiety disorder, which is GAD. This is people who worry about things that could happen, about money, about family, but when there's no sign of trouble, but they see something might happen. And then you have panic disorders, and then you have phobias as well. When we're talking about phobias, we're talking about not just spiders and things like that. We're talking about someone who can't live as we perceive a normal life. They can't continue with normal things because they have a phobia of something. So psychotic disorders. So we have psychosis. So psychosis is an umbrella term can be an umbrella term for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I'm sure everybody's heard of schizophrenia. A lot of people believe it's split personality disorder, but it actually isn't. It's actually called split mind. It's when thoughts and perception become disordered. So I don't think the media and the movies really portray schizophrenia very well. Eating disorders, which is ED, anorexia, which is a common one, and bulimia. But you also have binge eating as well. Binge eating is when you're trying to consume lots of amount of food. Eating disorders are actually a way of coping with something. It's nothing to do with food. It's to do with what you're going through in your everyday lives at that time. Self-harm. This is categorized as behavior, not an illness. People use self-harm to try and control something that they're going through, that they've got a lot of stress in their lives. They're using self-harm as a coping mechanism. And we must realize that it's not attention-seeking behavior. It's actually attention needing. So they need some attention, they need some help. Because when you think, a lot of people do say it's attention-seeking, but a lot of self-harm is very private because they do hide things, hide scars and things. So 265 disorders in total that we know of. So obviously we can't go through all of those today. So just some uncoping things in regards to mental health. It's just to make you aware of the risk factors. So you have alcohol and substance misuse. Yeah, a lot of us do like a glass of wine, etc. But alcohol and substance misuse has been used by people who actually have attempted or completed suicide. It's a very unhelpful coping mechanism. Neglect. So neglect could be abuse or something's happened to a person. A traumatic life event, so someone's gone through something quite traumatic. Some people deal with things better than others. It depends how they're being brought up through their lives, what environment they're being brought up in, etc. So a traumatic life event could be for someone moving house or divorce or something like that. Unemployment or being made redundant, obviously that has an impact on your self-worth and your self-esteem. Physical illness, obviously physical illness can be a contributing factor for your mental health. If you're not physically well, then obviously your mind will suffer because of that. Disability again as well. So low self-esteem, some people do have low self-esteem. It's because it's the way they're being brought up in their environment. And genetics can play a part. You're more likely to develop a mental health condition if it's in your genes, if someone else in your family suffers from a mental health issue. So protective factors. So on the other side of that, have self-belief. And if you think someone in your life's done a great job, just say thank you and make sure you're letting them know that they've done a good job. But self-belief is very important for yourself as an individual. Problem solving, communicating and coping skills can be a very good protective factor. Good relationships, so have good relationships. I'd just like to go back to the health self-harm aspect that I spoke about earlier. Self-harm, some people do stay in bad relationships as a form of self-harm because they don't think they've got any, they don't think they've got any better and they don't think they can do better than that. Nutrition, obviously, good diet is very good to promote mental health. Rest and activity. We need to make sure when we're working, especially, that we have that time to reflect on our days, to have that rest time, to make sure we're getting those breaks. And activity is obviously very important as well. Social support networks. There's a lot of social support networks out there in regards to Facebook and apps and things like that. But also it could be just speaking to friends and family and making sure you have a social circle there that you can talk to. Physical health, very important. Rewarding work and fulfillment. So rewarding work, if you're a line manager, just going back to that conversation, make sure you're telling people, your staff, that you've done a good job. Fulfillment could be in people that are actually doing work for the NHS at the moment, speaking to people who are going through things, nurses and things like that, and mental health first aiders are actually helping them to get through certain days at work. It could be just helping others. It could be rewarding work. That could be your fulfillment. And I just want to talk a little bit about self-care. You need to look after your own well-being. It's very important that you look after your own well-being. The mental health starts with you. You need to find ways to reduce stress as well. This might be different from one person to the next. An example for me, for reducing stress, I do a lot of exercise. I like to do that. It keeps my mind active, as well as a healthy diet. Communicate with others when you need to. So if you need to speak to someone, just pick up the phone, do a video call, whatever that needs to look like for you. Exercise, I've mentioned it before, very important. Mindfulness, so taking that, there's apps available for mindfulness, taking that time just to maybe do breathing exercises, it does help. Talking to people, like I've mentioned before, communication is very, very important. Make sure you talk about your feelings. Sleeping, so sleep deprivation can have a real negative impact on our mental health. Self-care isn't selfish, okay? You must remember that self-care isn't selfish. You should have between 30 minutes and an hour per day in regards to self-care. When we talk about self-care, I mean, do something that makes you happy, do something for 30 minutes, an hour a day. Some people might want a little bit of alone time, that's absolutely fine, but others might just think, yeah, I want to spend some time with my children, or I want to spend time walking my dog for half an hour, whatever that looks like for you. Make sure you have time for yourself. And what I will stress, again, is if you are working from home, you need to make sure you have that home and work-life balance as well, okay? And even when you are back to work fully, you need to make sure that you have separation, whether that's switching your mobiles off on a night time, make sure you're not checking your emails through the night, that sort of thing. Okay, so these are a few courses that we run at MP Skills. I'm the instructor for MP Skills, just an idea of what we do. So the mental health awareness course is to educate all staff. So we would recommend that for everyone. It's a half-a-day introductory course. The mental health first aid champion, that's a one-day course. We generally aim that to line managers. But the mental health first aider is the most training courses I've done this year on the last 12 months. So a 2-day course, and it qualifies you to be a mental health first aider. You'll get an in-depth information in regards to mental health and the factors that can affect your well-being as well. Spot the signs and triggers and be able to signpost to mental health. If your mental health first aider, would you be your first point of contact for anyone who's struggling? Exactly the same as a physical first aider. Okay, it'll give you that confidence to step in and reassure and support that person in distress. If you do want additional information, I'm quite happy for my email to go out or for my mobile if anybody wants additional information. But that is our office line if anybody wanted to speak to us about that. But there is one more thing that I would like to add. If you need anything or you're looking at webinars or anything for your business, you can certainly contact us, or you can contact myself direct. That's absolutely fine.
Thanks for that, Julie. We have just had a very quick question in. In your experience, do people suffering realise they're suffering? Do they want help, or are they more likely to shy away?
It depends on the individual. It depends how you've been brought up really in your environment, like I've mentioned a few times. Some people are confident. They are very confident to actually deal with things themselves. Some people can step back and think, oh, I don't feel too good today. I need to change the way I do something. But others don't know the suffering. So it depends on the individual.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you to all of those who took the time out to join us today. If you're looking for any additional CPD content, please head over to the IQ YouTube channel. We're frequently updating that with new content and material, in addition to hosting all of our past webinars on there for you to dip into. But just a quick note of thanks also to the IQ West of England branch in bringing us this session with MP Skills today. Take care and hope to see you all again soon.